In this video, I'm gonna go over the 3 pros and the 3 cons to intermittent fasting. Whether you have been practicing intermittent fasting for an extended period of time, whether you are considering trying it for the first time, or maybe you're ardently against it, this video, regardless, will teach you something new. At the end of the video, we'll go over my opinion based on all of these case studies, along with some other things you need to consider so you can decide if it's right for you. Instead of citing studies and research, I'm going to reference the thousands of anecdotes that I have seen firsthand. These individuals are people I've worked with personally over the last 8 years, whether that was through Heart and Soil as the lead health coach under Paul Saladino or through my coaching business. First, we have to define what is intermittent fasting, and I'll explain the quotations later. Essentially, it is this practice where you only consume food in certain windows during the day. Allegedly, intermittent fasting will help you burn fat, maybe even put on muscle, and yield all the benefits of long-term fasting like autophagy. For example, someone who might wake up at 8 a.m. will not eat until 12 p.m. and they will only eat from 12 to 8, so they have an 8-hour fasting window. Some people like to even shorten it from that. Typically, you don't see fasting windows that are longer than 8 hours. Some do 10, but most will be 8, 6, or even 4-hour eating windows. All of the anecdotes or anecdata that I have seen includes how people reacted to intermittent fasting in terms of energy, hormones, blood work, gym performance, mental clarity, even sleep quality. We have 3 pros for intermittent fasting. The first one is that it is wildly easy to maintain caloric restriction. People like Greg O'Gallagher and other influencers have really popularized this idea, and they have tons of clients who have seen amazing results. Granted, I don't really like his flashy personality or how he talks about women, but that's a different video. Most of the reason it's easy for people to calorically restrict is that your body gets used to these windows and you can focus on other things during the day. Which brings me to the number 2 pro, is that it is so easy to manage your time while you're intermittent fasting. You don't have to worry about cooking or when you're eating or any of these things. You can simply just start your morning, go through half the day and not even worry about food or feeling sluggish after you eat. Number 3, it is much easier to lose weight with this approach than other caloric restriction methods. Saying it's easy to calorie restrict, but then it's easy to lose weight are actually different aspects, because sometimes it's easy to calorically restrict, but it's really not easy to lose weight. I'm going to spend more time talking about the cons because I have seen the grand majority of people in the long run, not necessarily the short run, not react well to intermittent fasting. Con number 1, intermittent fasting is a lot more like time restricted eating, which basically means you're tricking your body into caloric restriction where you're not actually getting the benefits of long-term fasting. Most dietitians don't even recommend intermittent fasting, which should be kind of a red flag. And here's why. Similarly to a caloric deficit, intermittent fasting signals scarcity throughout the body. Signaling scarcity to the body in the form of caloric and micronutrient deficiency actually causes peripheral processes to shut down. Essentially, the body triages its efforts to go into survival mode. It makes it harder to burn fat. It makes it more difficult to produce enough hormones. It makes it difficult to work out well and recover well. It can even affect some people's sleep, ability to function cognitively. Abundance actually signals the opposite. I'll be doing a video in the future how I actually ate more and lost fat and put on muscle at a net decrease in my weight over 8 or 9 months. So related, but con number 2 is intermittent fasting is really a short-term plan. The grand majority of people I worked with over the last 8 years actually only saw benefits for the first 2 to 4 months of practicing intermittent fasting. Number 3 con, we are most insulin sensitive in the mornings. That means we should be eating in the morning. This means in the mornings we are able to digest food much better. We can handle a meal much better than we can later in the evenings when we're less insulin sensitive. It's not just carbohydrates that spike insulin. Anything that we eat will spike our insulin. For intermittent fasting, skipping breakfast and eating later in the day has a lot of other dark sides to it.
You have failed me for the last time.
Two people you probably know well, Hube Daddy and Dr. Help Me Rhonda, talk about the importance of having protein in breakfast and not skipping breakfast, as well as eating the majority of your protein earlier in the day and eating a lot of carbohydrates and protein post-workout. Eating a lot later in the day, especially close to bedtime, or working out late in the day and having most of your food after a workout is really going to negatively impact sleep quality. And it's not just that. We need really good sleep quality, like restorative, deep/slow wave sleep and REM sleep, in order to put on muscle, maintain muscle, optimize our hormones, and so much more. And having large intakes of food later in the evening can actually decrease the amount of IGF-1 that you create while sleeping. IGF-1 is crucial for muscle growth and muscle maintenance, so we do not want to decrease those levels. From a personal story, I tried intermittent fasting for a period of around 5 months. At the time when I started, I was working a desk job, I was pale, I was pretty puffy, I was only hitting the gym twice a week, and I was super overworked and overstressed. I was getting married in a few months, and I needed a way to lose weight fast because I was not my best looking, and I wanted to be. And though it did work in the short run, it took me a year and a half, probably over a year and a half, to ramp up my metabolism and my strength and my hormones and my sleep quality and all kinds of things that suffered during the 5 months that I was practicing intermittent fasting. I simply didn't have the drive or the energy to perform well in the gym or at work, or even have the tolerance in my personal life to handle challenges. This was not unique to me. Like I said, about over 80% of the people that I worked with experienced very similar downsides. So here's my takeaways that I think you should consider before you implement or continue to implement intermittent fasting. It's a great springboard potentially, but it is highly circumstantial.
Hey guys, I'm gonna be jumping off my stairs because I hit 3 followers on TikTok. Like, I've never got more. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1.
It does not have great long-term solution potential and can be really negative when it comes to metabolism/thyroid, hormonal health, gym performance and recovery, muscle building, cognitive function, sleep quality, and more. Here's some questions to consider if you are going to try intermittent fasting or if you're currently intermittent fasting. Have you been in a caloric deficit because you're trying to lose weight for an extended period of time? If you have, you're going to want to boost your metabolism and not intermittent fast. This is going to mean breakfast in the morning and eating plenty of the right foods throughout the day. But like I said, I'm going to do a different video on that in the future. What are your goals? If you're trying to get strong and have an optimal hormone panel and live functionally for a long time, intermittent fasting might not be right for you. However, if you need to lose weight fast and you have a short window to do it and you don't want to do it forever, it might work. If you are hitting the gym 2 or more times a week, or if you're an athlete or you're just a really active person and you're feeling low energy or you don't want to feel low energy, intermittent fasting might not be the right option. However, if you are temporarily bedridden due to a physical injury or maybe some sort of ailment, it could help you manage your weight. If you're a very sedentary person, you're not very active, you might not need to boost your metabolism and do all these things, and therefore intermittent fasting might be a viable option. Have you even tried long-term fasting to compare to intermittent fasting? In my opinion, long-term fasting is about 24 hours to 72 hours. It can go longer, but that's the sweet spot to reap the benefits without having too many downsides. I think that's a much better approach at burning fat without the downsides of the metabolism, the hormones, and so on and so forth. This is the really big question. Have you already cut out processed foods? Have you already upped your activity? Do you have a good strategic training regimen that fits your goals? Are you eating enough of the right foods? If you're not doing those things, there's no point in trying intermittent fasting. Those things have a higher yield. They're more likely to help you, and you should try those first. Now, if you are still hell-bent on doing intermittent fasting, I'd suggest having your eating window be right after you get up. Have a good breakfast, have a good bit of protein and carbohydrates and fats. Have your window in the earlier part of the day, and then have your time-restricted eating, your non-eating window, in the second half of the day and while you sleep. That way, you're preserving your sleep and you're dodging most of the cons. You're mitigating most, but not all, of the downsides to intermittent fasting. As the theme is with this channel, do you want to be the tortoise or you want to be the hare? Do you want to win the long-term investment or do you want to go short-term? Choice is yours. Comment, If you agree or disagree with my takeaways on intermittent fasting, or what your experience has been with intermittent fasting, I'd love to hear it. Share this video with somebody who might need to hear the pros and cons of intermittent fasting. See you in the next controversial video.